Welcome back. The House voted yesterday to hold Attorney General Merrick Garland in contempt of Congress over his refusal to hand over the audio tape of an interview between President Biden and former special counsel Robert Hur. That on the president's mishandling of classified documents. Joining me now is Wisconsin Congressman Scott Fitzgerald, a member of the House Judiciary and Financial Services Committee. Congressman, good to see you. Thanks very much for being here. Why do you want to hear the audio so much? We know you have the actual written transcript. What is the story with the written transcript? Is it different than the audio?
Well, when we had the Attorney General before the committee, I mean, one of the questions that I specifically asked him was whether or not he had actually heard the tapes himself. And he said he had not. And I said, well, how can you be the arbitrator then of, what's in the transcript versus what's in audio? And he says, his answer was, well, we've got professionals that have done that work that are part of the DOJ system. That's not sufficient. And I think every member of the committee that day had the same response. We're talking about stuff that could be subject to Freedom of Information Act, but we'll never know unless we actually get our hands on this. So there's it's gone beyond just, is this full of gaffes by the president? This has become a real battle between DOJ and the House of Representatives.
Yeah, no, I'm just wondering how much the transcript was doctored or changed. I know one of your colleagues told me,
Exactly.
they edited out the ums and the ahs, but what else was different between the transcript, which you have, and the audio tapes, which you want?
Yeah, it's not just about the pauses, right, and the dialect and the emphasis on certain sentences. This is about whether or not the American people should have access to something that clearly the President of the United States was involved in. And I'm not sure that any member of Congress would get these types of protections.
Okay.
And that's, this branch of government wouldn't get that.
Let me move on to Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg and Prosecutor Matthew Colangelo. They are set to testify, of course, before the House Judiciary Committee, your committee, on July 12th. That's one day after former President Trump gets sentenced. The Justice Department is denying any collusion between Bragg, Colangelo, and the White House. I spoke with Senator Roger Marshall yesterday in discussing this. Here's what he said. Watch. The DOJ is saying absolutely no. There's no coordination. Nobody met with White House counsel.
Let's get an entire log of every day that this guy has spent working for Merrick Garland. I think that's where we're going to find the evidence. So, yes, we have the power to subpoena all of his records. I think that we'll find that the focus of his day, the focus of his life for the last 10, 15 years is to get Donald Trump. And I bet he's behind this concept of turning 34 misdemeanors whose statutes of limitation had ran out, somehow trying to turn that into a felony. This is why Americans don't have faith in our government right here.
Yeah. I mean, Congressman, this is an important issue because people are not sure whether or not this was a conspiracy, a coordinated effort to take down Trump. The White House is saying it wasn't. But here's the former director of national intelligence with me last week, John Ratcliffe. Watch.
What happened in this case is that after Donald Trump announced he was going to run for president, 4 different sets of prosecutors went to Joe Biden's White House to meet with Joe Biden's lawyers and his Department of Justice. From Georgia, from New York, Letitia James, Jack Smith, shortly before he brought his indictments, and of course, Alvin Bragg, who not only met with Joe Biden's lawyers in the White House, he took one of Joe Biden's lawyers from the Department of Justice to have him bring this case. So, all of these people in all of these jurisdictions, Maria, are proxies of the Biden White House.
Congressman, isn't there a way to document this? Were there meetings or not with White House counsel?
Mr. Radcliffe got it right. That's exactly what happened. We have to backtrack now and put the pieces together. But, people forget, Colangelo worked for the DNC. That's where the bright line has absolutely been ignored. Everybody knows that they were ushering him in and out of meetings that were quasi-political, trying to figure out how they could put together a 4-case front to go after President Trump. So the idea that somehow it was just something that DOJ saw in Matt Colangelo that they thought, oh, this is a good attorney that we could use. No, This guy worked at the DNC, and everybody in Washington knows that.
That's unbelievable. Meanwhile, in terms of policy, Biden's executive order on the border is doing little to stop illegal migrants from flooding into the country. And now even pro-immigration watchdogs are warning of the risks. The Guardian out with a piece titled, "People Will Die. Biden's border order will worsen migrant risks," experts say, and the risks are rising for American citizens, too. The FBI and ICE agents arresting 8 illegal migrants with suspected ties to ISIS in a multi-city sting operation this week. A new report from the Department of Homeland Security Inspector General concludes that the agency has not been effectively screening non-citizens. Really? Writing, until the department addresses these challenges, DHS will remain at risk of admitting dangerous persons into the country or enabling asylum seekers who may pose significant threats to public safety and national security. Fox News' Alexis McAdams spoke with a New York City Council Democrat who admitted he's worried for our city. Watch this.
This teaches us a lesson. If we didn't learn a lesson from 9/11 in New York City, we'll never learn a lesson. It's frightening, and we're headed for another 9/11. I predicted that. I think we should have a secure border. We should know who's coming into our country. We don't, and millions of migrants and illegal aliens have gotten through. So it's a situation that we're just, really rolling the dice here.
Well, that was a stunning comment. We're going to see another 9/11, Congressman. How many people have been apprehended on the terrorist watch list? I know hundreds and hundreds. But what should we understand about this moment in time in terms of the vulnerability of this country?
Well, Maria, I've been to the border twice in the last month. In the Tucson sector, for the first time that I've had a direct dialogue with a Border Patrol agent about give me just a rough profile who's coming across the border. It's the first time I've had one of the Border Patrol agents say it is changing dramatically. It's the first time that they've had contact with Chinese nationals down there, and they're concerned that everyone knows what the pathway is now: fly into Canada and come across the northern border, or fly into South America, pick your country and make your way across the southern border. So this is something that's real, and the Border Patrol agents and Homeland Security are starting to see that more often.
What is the point of these tens of thousands of Chinese nationals coming to the country, do you think? Right? You can't just get up and leave China, right? You've got to get approval from the government, communist country. So is Xi Jinping sending these people here, do you think?
Absolutely. I don't think that there's any doubt that there's a concerted effort that once they discovered how porous the southern border is, that it was another way of making sure that they were able to place people that could be eyes and ears for China. And certainly, I think, puts more pressure on our overall kind of control of what we're trying to pick up on when it comes to espionage. This is all part of that plan.
Congressman, it's great to catch up with you. Thanks very much. We'll be watching all of that.
Thanks,
Scott
Maria.
Fitzgerald
Thank you.
in D.C. Thank you, sir.